So, actually there are many songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in which he describes that perfection. And describes it in very personal terms, in terms of his desire to attain that position. In this song which we just sung, that he sung that he would attain the position of a maidservant of Radharani. This may sound rather strange, that although he is male, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he is aspiring for the position of a female. That is a transcendental desire, to attain a position of service. So he describes in some detail what his service is, how he shall perform service. So this is all extremely elevated, but this is exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Anarpita chiring chirat karunya bhatirno kalo samapyatam unatajvala rasa swabhakti shriya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in this Kali Yuga to give something which had not been given even in many previous Kali Yugas or Dwapara Yugas or Treta Yugas or Satya Yugas. Out of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being most merciful, he offered the topmost resplendent exchanges in bhakti. The treasure of devotion actually to himself, because he is Krishna. So the Vaishnava Acharyas, they have continued to expound on this theme. Our recent Acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they have all cautioned us not to artificially try to jump into Krishna's intimate pastimes without having the qualification of being free from material desires and having a genuine spiritual desire to serve Radha and Krishna. So we should be cautious in this matter. At the same time, we should know what is the ultimate goal that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pointing us toward. We should not be so cautious. Definitely we should be cautious, but we should not be so cautious as to edit out or pretend that it does not exist. The ultimate attainment that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points us toward. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his writings, his teachings, has directed us toward that attainment which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us. Now this song, which we sung, Kobe Gaurabanu, that appears within the collection of songs, very famous collection of songs. Very famous means among those who are followers of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His song in the series of Sharanagati. They should be much better known than they are. So he starts off the first song in that series, Sharanagati, begins, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kare, Shopashada Shiyadhama Shaha Avatar. He sings that Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, being merciful to the fallen jivas. Actually, it just says jivas, so to the fallen or not fallen, especially to the fallen, but being merciful to the jivas, appears with his associates and with his dham. He descends from the spiritual world. Atanta durlabha prema karibare dan shikhai sharanagati bhakatera pran. So this extremely rare prema, very difficult to attain, very rarely attained. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving that. How does he give it? By teaching the process of Sharanagati, how to take shelter of Krishna, which we learn from the teachings of the Acharyas. That means to take shelter of Krishna's devotees, and that's at all stages. Even in the highest, most advanced stages, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain in some of these songs, one takes shelter of an associate of Krishna or an associate of Radha, which is of course that means an associate of Krishna, but there are subgroups also, and serves Radha and Krishna, or just Radha or just Krishna, but anyway, it's all meant for the same purpose. Under the guidance of a servant, so, for instance, there may be a servant who specializes in offering garlands. So the assistant servants, they have to gather the flowers and string them like this, under the guidance of the intimate servants. So, how to attain such a perfection? There are many such, there's much advice given in this series of songs, Sharanagati, how to take shelter. And in this song which we sung just before breaking up at midday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes how to live in Navadvip Dham in such a way that one can attain perfection. Or what Bhaktivinoda Thakur desires. Now, what he describes, we don't actually find any description of him doing this. We do find the description of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He actually lived like this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in many ways was, in his external behavior, was reserved. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was not reserved. He wasn't making a show for the public, just the opposite. But just like in this song we sing, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Dhare Avadhuta Besh. He aspires to wear the dress of a avadhut, which means someone who has no connection with this world or with the rules and regulations of this world. That doesn't mean that he lives a degraded life, but he doesn't follow varnashram. doesn't follow the usual social rules, not because he's degraded, but because he's beyond the rules. Or no. Sometimes devotees, they say, well, we don't have to follow all these rules, just because they're lazy. But one who has actually transcended the rules, because he's on the platform of Smartavya Satatang Vishnu, Vishmartavya Najatu Chit. All the rules are meant for remembering Krishna and not forgetting Krishna. So one who's on that platform, who's fully absorbed in that, he may follow the rules like Bhaktivinoda Thakur followed the rules of Bhakti and Varnashram to set an example for others. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj lived a totally unconventional life, not concerned with setting an example for others, and not particularly flouting the rules just to be unconventional, but just being completely natural in his behavior. So we can say, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he exhibited the character of an actual Sahajya. Sahajya means one who acts completely naturally. Prakrita Sahajya means those who imitate the behavior of such exalted souls. But the topmost platform for a Vaishnava is to be an actual Sahajya. This should not be misunderstood. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he distinguished this common term, Sahajya. It means people who purport to act in a very natural way. The problem with that is that if one acts as one thinks to be natural, without being freed from material desires, then he will simply indulge in mundane lust, which is not really natural. That's an artificial covering on the soul. So, real Sahajya is one who's fully in touch with himself, fully in touch with Krishna, and without caring for others, simply acts in a manner that to others might seem to be the behavior of a madman. But a devotee doesn't care. Vangshi Das Babaji Maharaj, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, to others they may have seemed like a madman, but they didn't care that people thought they were mad. They didn't care what anyone thought. Not that they were hostile to the world, but they were so much detached from it that what people thought about them didn't matter at all. Well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that in another song, which I guess we could sing also. You have the printout of that. Where are the song printouts? You can get the printouts. It's to explain one song. Some point we can go into another song. From these songs we get some insights into the exalted thoughts of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In this song, I'll just say what it is, then we can sing it afterwards. he sings Guru Dev, he's calling out to his Guru. Kabe tava karuna prakasha. When by the manifestation of your mercy, Shri Gauranga Lila Hoineta Tatta Ajara Bishasa, that I will have firm faith that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, they are Nitya Tattva, they are eternal reality. So thinking like that, or with that conviction, Hari Hari Boli, Godruma Kanone, Brahmibo Darshana Ashe. We're calling out Hari Hari, wandering in the groves and gardens of Godrum. That's that area geographically situated just south of here on the other side of the Jalangi or Saraswati River, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur resided. So wandering in the gardens of Godruma with the desire to have darshan, to see the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These ladies are sitting here. Is anyone someone's translating for them? These ladies at the back. They're with our group, or they're just... What's going on? Someone's translating? Okay. So, Adhapi ho jai lila kare gaurarai, kono bhagyavane dekhi bare pai. Even today, this is from Chaitanya Bhagavat, not the version that we have, but it's commonly quoted. Even today, some fortunate persons can see the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going on. They're still going on. Just like in Vrindavan, we don't see. We see roads and motorbikes and cars and big condominium blocks. Vrindavan has become like a suburb of Delhi. But pure devotees, they see Krishna's pastimes going on. Here in Mayapur also, the pure devotees, they see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes going on. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that he is desiring the mercy of his Guru so that with full faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he will see within this dham of Navadip the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going on. Nitai Gauranga Advaita Srivas Gadadhara Panchajan. So that's clear. The five persons. Nitai Gauranga Advaita Srivas and Gadadhara. Krishna Nama Roshe Bhasha Be Jagat. Kari Maha Sankirtan. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's aspiration, that he will see the Panchatattva engaged in Maha Sankirtan. Flooding the world with Krishna Nama Rasa. Bhaktivinoda Thakur continues. Nartana Bilash, Mridanga Badam, Shunibo Apanakana, with these very own ears, I will see the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, and hear the sound of the mridanga in their kit. With these very ears, I will hear that. Then he goes on to say, Dekhiya Shelila Madhuri Bhashibo Premera Bani. So seeing this sweetness of the pastimes, he is aspiring that I will float in the flood of prem. Such is his aspiration. He's praying for the mercy of his Guru for this. Then it goes on. Na dekhi aba. And then again, don't see. You see? Then don't see. Pastimes are manifest, then not manifest. Na dekhi aba, Shailila Roton, Kandi Ha Gauranga Boli. So not seeing that jewel-like pastimes, then I will cry, Ha Gauranga, Ha Gauranga. Now if we describe all these things to materialistic people, they'll think this is just madness. Before it's described, this Kobe Gaurabane, Shuradhuni Tote, Har Krishna, Har Gaurabane. So I will roll on the ground, take the dust of the Vaishnavas and rub it on my body. To materialistic people, this sounds like absolute madness. That is the aspiration of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says that materialistic people seeing me like this, Amare Bishai Pagala Balaya Ongete Dibek Duli. That the materialistic people seeing me like this, they will call me a madman and will throw dirt on me. So that is his aspiration. He's just praying for the mercy of his Guru, that ordinary people will consider him insane and reject him. Of course, that should not be imitated. But if one is an actual sahajya, like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, then, of course, in this culture of India, some people are advanced enough to understand that such people are not insane, they are actually sane. Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj, I wrote in that book about him, that in any other culture, in any culture less spiritually exalted than that of India, he would have been considered completely insane. But in India, people understand. Siddha Mahatma, perfectly, fully self-realized, great soul. So that is the aspiration of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which was actually lived by Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. We shouldn't think that there was Bhaktivinoda, there was Bhaktisiddhanta, there was Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and Gaur Kishore is just somewhere there, just his name's there. We shouldn't think that he's something lesser. Even though he wasn't preaching widely, he didn't write any books, but he demonstrated what it means to be a Vaishnava without any worldly consideration. Bhaktivinoda, Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they all had worldly consideration, not mundane consideration, but worldly consideration, because they had to preach. So they had to interact with the world, they had to be concerned at some level, to some extent, what the people of the world thought of them, because if people are wholly against you or wholly uninterested in you, then you can't preach at all. But actually, just like the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur building big buildings so that people who consider themselves respectable and who others consider respectable will also consider Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur respectable. The buildings didn't make him respectable. People think that a big building makes you respectable. Someone who lives in a big building, they're a very respectable person. Stupid. Materialistic people are by definition stupid. They think if you live in a big building, that you're respectable. Why? A rat lives in a hole. A snake also lives in a hole. If they live in a bigger hole, are they a better rat? So the actually respectable people of the world are Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who rejected all respectability of this world. He kept himself away from all such so-called respectability. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was living like that. But for the sake of preaching, to some extent he adopted the formalities of this world. But the ideal that all Vaishnavas worship is that of the devotee totally with no contact with this world, and the respectable people of the world will reject him. Because he doesn't fit, they can't fit him into their way of thinking. They have their way of thinking, that people should be like this. And anyone doesn't fit into that, they simply reject them as insane. Now again, we shouldn't think that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was any less than Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Because Bhaktivinoda adopted the style and manners of a gentleman of this world. We should not judge a Vaishnava by any external consideration. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he, by such songs as this, he worshipped the ideal of the pure devotees who have no worldly consideration whatsoever. Now again, we should understand that those who do adopt some worldly consideration for the sake of preaching, we should not think they are any less. Internally, we can understand, they're on such an elevated platform. We can understand from the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was not simply as the materialistic people saw him, Kedarnath Datta Babu, a respectable man of this world. He went on with his supposedly materialistic life. But what consciousness he was cultivating, that he was considering the greatest mercy of his Guru would be that he would be so much absorbed in remembrance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, oblivious to the world, that materialistic people would reject him and call him crazy. So, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we can understand that the greatest mercy one can get from one's Guru is to become insane. So many people come asking for Ashirvadam. So, Ashirvadam, yes, you should be insane. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, in his conversation with Rai Ramananda, which is considered or is representational of the kind of talks that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have, especially at night. What's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Ramananda Samvad, the latter portion of that, is representational of the kind of talks that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had every night in Puri for 18 years with Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I am a bowel and you are a bowel. Bowel is not a respectable person. Rabindranath Tagore made them somewhat respectable. But Bao means Batu, means crazy. So as long as one is sane on the material platform, one cannot achieve the gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Again, this should be understood very carefully. Not that we imitate insanity, or not that we aspire to be insane in the manner that people who are normally considered insane are insane. I mean, there are insane people in this world. It doesn't mean that they're all self-realized. From the philosophical perspective that we understand in Krishna consciousness from Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas, that everyone in this world is insane. Ahankare matto haya nitai pada pasarya asatere shatta karimani. Ahankare, but due to intense false egoism, the people of this world who do not remember Nityananda Prabhu, they're insane. And they take what is unreal and insubstantial to be real and substantial. So everyone is insane. But there are degrees of insanity. I mean, some people, they just can't function at all properly in society. They're haunted by ghosts. There is what we would normally call insane. People who just, their mental, there's no proper coordination in their mental functions, or they can't properly interact with others due to fear or misconceptions of themselves. Maybe someone really thinks that I am the Prime Minister. Or you sometimes see these crazy people standing in the middle of the road, sometimes naked or just covered with some... You see it in India, not in Russia. They lock such people up in Russia. Standing in the middle of the road with they never bathed in their life, it looks like. Certainly not in the last 20 years. And maybe their body is just slightly covered by some dirty rag. Anyone who lives in India has seen this. And they'll be standing in the middle of the traffic directing it, although no one takes them seriously. But they think they're directing the traffic. So such people are actually insane. Even from the social point of view. But this kind of insanity that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pointing us toward, that is called insanity because it does not tally with the understanding of materialistic people. But actually that is full sanity. That is the platform to be aspired for. That is the platform beyond the so-called sanity of this world, which is actual insanity. So we can sing this now. Gurudev Kobe Toba Karuna Prakasha. I think you all have the song sheets. Have they been handed out? No, still not. They're sitting in someone's hand all this time. Yeah, this kind of insanity is not wanted. You get the song sheet and then you don't distribute it. Actually, talking about this highly elevated level of transcendental insanity, it seems to be such a difficult job to train people who come to Krishna consciousness, even in basic levels of human sanity. Things like turning off the fan when you leave the room, I mean, just basic, normal standards of human behavior. We're trying to bring people to the level of beyond normal human behavior, but in many cases it seems very difficult just to, first of all, you have to bring them to the level of human being, and then we'll see other things. So many things. Turning off the fan. So many times you have to tell people just to do some very basic, simple thing, which they should have learned at the age of 5 latest. Modern education is really worse than useless. The whole concept is, parents don't teach their children anything. They don't teach anything. It seems to be it's too troublesome. They seem too much trouble to teach their children anything. And children grow up as some kind of animals. And parents are satisfied if the children have some university degree. But they're just living like animals. This is the reality that we're living. We should sometimes discuss the highly exalted aim that the acharyas have pointed us toward. That I'm attempting to do in some manner now. But the actual reality we find ourselves with is that we are a long way to go. At least we should know where we're supposed to be going. Okay, now Bhaktivinoda Thakur was living just here. The Navadvip town, Kulia, was on the other side of the river. Still it's on the other side of the river. The Bhaktivinoda Thakur stayed at some distance from there. It was basically, as still today, Navadvip town it was dominated by Prakrita Sahajiyas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur kept some physical distance from them, and he made his residence in his eternal residence in Godruma Dham. He was, that time, of course, you have to remember there was very little. The population was much less. You wouldn't hear these generators and different sounds. It's very much rural atmosphere. Even nowadays we can't even imagine, because rural we think is some place we drive to. But there was no such thing. Of course the train was there. But otherwise the rural areas were very cut off and remote. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a lot of experience in living in and traveling in the rural areas. For some time he was posted in Narayal, which is now in the Jeshore district. I think they made it a district. They cut up the districts in Bangladesh. So he would travel around by boat, do unofficial government work. He would preach to the people. In the daytime he would do his government work, and in the evenings he would hold kirtans and preach to the people. So he was there, Swananda Sukhada Kunj. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he had a few followers who would live with him. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj would come to hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Even though Gaur Kishore was completely renounced from this world, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had all the trappings of a Calcutta Babu. Babu means a worldly gentleman. He'd built a house. The Babajis, they're not supposed to build houses. They're supposed to live very simply. Gaura Kishore would come to hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Although Gaura Kishore, he stringently avoided the association of materialistic people, but he would come to hear. And Siddhanta Saraswati would often be there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur would not allow any materialistic talk. He would chant the Hare Krishna mantra, minimum 64 rounds a day. That was normal, that was the standard. He would call out early in the morning. Until recently in India, everyone used to rise early, around the time of sunrise. Nowadays they've all become rakshasas, which means they like to stay up late at night. Nishacha. They like to stay up at night and sleep through the whole morning, early morning, which is the time when human beings are supposed to arise. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur would rise even much earlier. And he would chant the holy names, calling out loudly. He would chant very loudly the Mahamantra in japa. And one young boy who used to live there in that village which is called Swarupganj, which is now quite a large village. It used to be a small village, but now it's a large village. Some 2 generations ago, some Bangladeshi refugees came and settled there. They wanted to settle somewhere, so they settled in Navadvip Dham, weaver caste, handloom, they're doing handloom. So Bhaktivinoda, there was one young man who later became a sannyas disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he reminisced that in his childhood he would hear Bhaktivinoda Thakur early in the morning calling out the Hare Krishna mantra very loudly, as if he's calling to someone, just like you may call, hey, someone on the other side, you make without a, hey, you call out the name very loudly. You're calling their attention. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur would call out the holy names like this. And he had his ashram there, he was writing his communion with Krishna. He sprinkled a few drops of the ocean of nectar that he was always absorbed in. He sprinkled a few drops through ink on paper, and that became the writings of his that are preserved. There are many that are lost, unfortunately. Most unfortunate to the world. Most unfortunate for the world. But whatever we have, we can, some insights into the exalted consciousness of this Thakur Bhaktivinoda, who was just living there with a few people. In the afternoons, most of the year it's very hot. So that's standard practice in traditional India, but like everything else, it's all lost. The early part of the afternoon is meant for reciting Shastra. So sometimes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he would recite Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sometimes Siddhanta Saraswati would recite, and the few devotees would be there. And Siddhanta Saraswati would recite, sometimes Bhaktivinoda Thakur would give some comment. Sometimes Thakur Bhaktivinoda, on hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita recited, some passages he would spontaneously, being himself a Sahajya, as was previously explained, not like the mundane Sahajyas, but like a true, a fully perfect personality. He would start dancing and gyrating in ecstasy on hearing the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So such Sangha was there. We can just imagine that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was there. He was the leader, the senior Vaishnava there. Siddhanta Saraswati himself, later in life, there was just actually from the beginning of life, he was a very commanding figure. He was the only person who could defeat Abhay Charan, as he was known. Abhay Charan Aravinda Das, as he was later to be known, recounted that when he first went to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur defeated Abhay Charan's argument. It was the first time in his life that he'd ever been defeated by anyone. But he liked it. So, such very strong personalities. Siddhanta Saraswati, very extremely powerful personality. He defeated Abhay Charan and made that Abhay Charan his servant. So he is we can see that actually from the beginning of his life, but especially later on, that manifested as extremely powerful personality. But he was subordinate to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So how much powerful is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, he was there, he listened, he considered himself subordinate to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So they would be there, just a few devotees. What a powerful, 3 great acharyas all together, just few of them. And then with them often would also be Jagadish Bhakti Pradeep, who was initiated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and was given Harinam by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Later he became the first sannyas disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There are just a few of them. And they were relishing the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur profusely writing. And he could see that the whole world, just like we sung, Krishna Nama Roshe Bhasha Be Jagat, Kari Maha Sankirtana, that how Nitai, Gauranga, Advaita, Srivas, Gadadha, Panchajan, how these 5 performing Sankirtan in Godrum, in Navadvip Dham, they will flood the whole world with the nectar of Krishna Nama Rasa. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw all this. He was himself competent to deliver the whole world. All the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That song is that, what is that? Jagatata Shakti Dhare Jane Jane. I'm just now not remembering. That every devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone, Brahmanda Tarite, Shakti, Dhare Jane Jane. Every one of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu they have enough power, spiritual power, to deliver the whole world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he did what he did on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur he carried that further. And Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he carried that all over the world. And now it's up to us to carry it further, or if we like, we can spoil the whole thing. That's up to us, at least for ourselves. Actually, it cannot be spoiled. All of us together, we're not powerful enough to stop the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, despite our best or worst efforts. But if we strictly follow the path of the Acharyas, then they may empower us to be emissaries in their mission. We have no personal desire. We simply desire to take part in the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the servant of the Acharyas. We simply desire to be dust in the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. But if they so desire, they may empower us according to our capacity, as they desire, to take part in their mission. It's not our mission. In one sense, you can say it is, just like we can say this Mayapur Dham is also our residence, is our place. So it is. We should think, yes, it is our mission, is our good fortune to be engaged like this. But we can simply try to understand how great are these Acharyas. Just even from one line of their song, we can understand or we can get some insights through the coverings on our consciousness of lust, greed, anger, illusion, envy, pride, madness, material attachments, just completely covered by so many misconceptions and mundanities. But still, underneath all those coverings is the effulgent soul, which by nature is absorbed in intense love of Krishna. So the sound vibration, the pure sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, of the spiritual teachings imparted by the pure Vaishnavas, they pierce through the coverings of Maya on the soul, and they contact the soul. So this pure ecstasy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has committed that in writing, and we can take advantage also. Srila Prabhupada also said that his purports to his books, these are his personal ecstasies. That is his ecstasy of love of Krishna, manifested in his writings, meant for delivering the conditioned souls from the deep illusion in which we are presently situated and resituating us in our constitutional position of love of Krishna. So, we were discussing that song, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is aspiring to, in the Gaurabhani, in the forest, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, means this land of Vrindavan. Actually, that time, as I was saying, that would have been actually more forest and less rice fields. on the bank of the Ganga, Suradhuni, calling out, Ha Radhe, Ha Krishna. So like I say, this is actually what Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj did. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we don't find in his manifest activities that he did this. So, crying with tears, wandering around, giving up any deha sukha, any comfort or pleasure of the body. This is exactly the description of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Among all the various trees and creepers, he's aspiring. Kobe Shapacha Grihete Magia Kaibo Pibo Saraswati Jal. He's thinking to beg from the Chandalas, the lowest caste. You don't take food from such people. To do so is not the lowest caste, they're lower than any caste. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he actually did this when living in Vrindavan. See, in Vrindavan, the sadhus, traditionally they live by madhukara. Means they beg door to door, some chapatis or whatever. And they get their food like this. This way they don't have to bother about where they'll get their food from. Very simply, whatever they get, they eat, and they spend their time in bhajan. They're supposed to live a very renounced existence. But they would beg from pious people, and those who are chandalas, meat eaters, or those who are chamars, or those who deal in cow skins of dead cows or such things, they are considered constitutionally sinful. It's a sinful birth. It is understood that one takes birth in such a family due to previous sinful activities. So the Babajis, they don't beg from such people. You're supposed to take food from pious people because what we eat affects our consciousness. So if we eat food cooked by sinful people, then we become affected by sinful consciousness. This is a very basic principle, not even of devotional life, but even of ordinary religious life, dharmic life in Indian culture. That you just don't eat here and there anything. Nowadays people do, and even so many of our so-called devotees, they do. But you can't actually be a devotee unless you only take that which is actually Krishna Prasada. And it's not just by calling something prasad, you just get something from somewhere, and then you stick it in front of a picture of Krishna and mumble a few mantras, and say, we turned it into prasad. So, you can cheat yourself if you like, but you won't cheat Krishna by doing that. So, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, one time he begged from the sweeper caste. It was very low caste. Those who sweep the street, clean the toilets, Bangi class. Hardy in Bengal. Now there are no... Anyway, so some gentlemen of Vrindavan, they politely but with much concern approached Jagannath Das Babaji that, Babaji Maharaj, you're so much respected here for being Siddha Mahatma, perfect devotee. And if you beg from this lowest class of people, then that will spoil the whole dharma. Jagannath Das Babaji replied that, you see, all the Vaishnavas, they aspire for the dust of Vrindavan, and these people, by their profession, they're sweeping that, they're always covered in the dust of Vrindavan. They're the most exalted people. It is unconventional. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, they showed the mode of behavior for conventional devotees. Those who are coming from the human platform to the superhuman platform. They should not artificially imitate the superhuman platform of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. That also Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, when he was in Navarit Dham, then every day he would sit down to eat and some puppies would come. And while Jagannath Das Babaji was eating, the puppies would eat from the same plate. And his servants would try to shoo away the puppies. And Jagannath would say, no, let them stay. They're dogs of the Dham. So again, this is not to be imitated. Nowadays it's become a fashion among some of our devotees to keep dogs. And according to those devotees, every dog who has a devotee, that devotee is actually a Maha Bhagavat in the form of a dog. They seem to think, my dog's a great devotee. But it's a dog. You're attached to a dog. It's not anything devotional, it's mundane. So the Acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our own Srila Prabhupada, they showed how to live and act in a conventional way that is suitable for aspiring devotees. But what is the aspiration? To come to this platform, which is described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Describing means he's not making a point-by-point analysis. He does that in other of his writings. But this is his bhava prakasha. These songs, they're simply the manifestations of his own personal ecstasy. But later, actually after his departure from this world, in a dream, he instructed Paramananda, who was one of the very first disciples of Saraswati Thakur, that my songs, he told this, well, these songs were published, some of them, they were published in the Sajjana Toshani magazine. But like magazines, they're not kept in a very regular way. So later, Thakur Bhaktivinoda instructed Paramananda that you collect all the songs and publish them in books. So now there's not all the songs of Bhaktivinoda here, some of them are here. But they are available to the world, and they're of tremendous, just incalculable benefit to the people of the world if they would simply sing these songs and just enter, by Bhaktivinoda's mercy, enter into his world. And his world, what is his world? Sometimes he expresses that I'm very sinful, Amar Jivan Shada Pape Rata Nahika Punyaralesh My whole life, he says, is simply full of sins. There's not even a trace of any piety. So sometimes he expresses like that, and then he carries us from the world of mundane attachment right into the world of serving the divine couple. So they're of immense value, incalculable value. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the time will come when the people of the world will learn Bengali to read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now I may say, why should they learn Bengali? Because that was already being translated into English, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and it's translatable into English, and now it is translated into English. So why should people learn Bengali? Just get it translated. Well, as anyone who has done any translation, especially from two languages which are quite different, the subtleties, the flavor of one language cannot be properly conveyed in another. And actually from Bengali and Sanskrit to English, it's a big jump. I mean, if it's to Hindi, it's not so much. Even Hindi, you won't get the same feeling and flow as in Bengali. But in English, many of the books of the Gauriya Acharyas, so much is based on understanding of the language and the culture and the concepts that they're not properly. You can't really convey everything at all, because unless you have extensive footnotes, which then the flow isn't there. The flow of thoughts is interrupted by footnotes. So why learn Bengali? Well, to read Chaitanya Charitamrita in the original, there's a sweetness which cannot, just the nature of the English language. English language is not meant for conveying sweetness. If anything, it's more toughness or aggressiveness. That's considered a more important value. So the time will come when the people of the world learn Bengali to read Chaitanya Charitamrita and the works of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, which those who can appreciate in the original language, then there's a richness which, in translation, some idea is there. Of course, one can become completely Krishna conscious without learning Bengali. It's not a prerequisite. The essence is that of selfless service to Krishna. But this is, for those who can, it is certainly an asset in their devotional life, if they can do so. Of course, so many Bengalis are coming here. They're not interested in these things. Vast majorities of Bengalis have never heard of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They never heard of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They many know ISKCON, Mayapur, but they don't really know about Prabhupada. So we have much work to do in informing people of this. Bengalis, they're mostly, if they're at all interested in literature, then they think, oh, Robbie Tagore. It's like, even that many may not even read him, but they just think he's a Bengali hero. But they don't, it's not that actually many people, they read, I think not many read, but they know his name. Vivekananda. They also don't know, which is good for them, what Vivekananda said, but just, oh, Vivekananda. This should be banned. What is this in Mayapur, this noise making? They're making it into another concrete jungle. Instead of Godru Makana, it becomes a traffic jam jungle. So, Kobe shapacha grihete magya kaibo pibo saraswati jo. When will I beg from the house, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, beg from the houses of the dog eaters? Shapacha literally means dog eater. Beg food from them and drink the water of the Saraswati. Then, Puline, along the banks of the rivers, Garagari Dibbo, rolling on the ground. That's a standard Vaishnava practice, which somehow we're not doing that, but that is to roll in the dust of the dham. You can do also. Why not? And Kari Krishna Kolahan, and calling out loudly the name of Krishna. He's saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, when will I, offering obeisance to the residents of the Dham, beg a drop of mercy from them, and taking the dust of the Vaishnavas' feet, smearing that on my body, and take the dress of an avadhut, means someone who has nothing to do with society, like Gaukishore Das Prabhuji Maharaj. Knowing, seeing no difference between the land of Vrindavan and the land of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this way I will become a resident of the Dham, and the eyes by which we now see we see everything as enjoyable to myself. What is suitable for my enjoyment? This is how we see now. But for those who adopt the attitude of, how can I find Krishna? Then for such a person, the Dham manifests. How that manifests, that will be described in more songs by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Dhame Swarup Shuribe Nayan. Then I will become a maidservant of Radha. So what is required to be the maidservant of Radha? This complete faith, complete dedication, complete humility, complete non-attachment from this world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is expressing this here. So this is the consciousness required. It's not such a cheap thing. People come up and say, Maharaj, bless me, I can get Krishna prema. As if it's, like buying a chocolate from the shop. It would be more suitable if they would ask, please bless me to give up all material attachments. No one comes in and give me Krishna prema, as if it's just such a cheap thing. But one has to give up all material attachments. Practically we find Srila Prabhupada, he didn't speak of prema much. He spoke a lot about surrender, giving up sense gratification, dedicating ourselves in the service of Krishna. If we do this under the guidance of devotees, then everything will come naturally in due course of time. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. By Srila Prabhupada's mercy, all desires will be fulfilled, all spiritual desires will be fulfilled. So we shouldn't be ignorant of the gifts that our acharyas are offering. But at the same time, we shouldn't take it very cheaply. Our effort must be there in devotional service, to surrender to Krishna, to act only for His pleasure, to spurn sense gratification, to give up material attachments, but how to, in a sensible way. That means yukta vairagya, not imitating Gaura Kishora Das Prabhuji, but following in the path given by the acharyas who have shown us how to live in this world without being attached to it, for the service of Krishna. So in this way, by surrendering to Krishna, dovetailing all our desires in the mission of the acharyas for serving Krishna, for preaching Krishna consciousness, then by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and all the previous acharyas, then the gifts that they have to give us, that they've come to this world to give us, they will give us. So, all right, Hare Krishna. Then tomorrow morning, there's some pending questions which I can take tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll speak more on this. There's unlimitedly more to be spoken. How Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by revealing his own manobhishta, the desire of his own heart, he has given a signpost for all his followers in disciplic succession to go on the same path. So maybe I'll speak on that, or maybe I'll speak on some questions, whatever. Let's see. Now, here in Mayapur, as we've all come, we shouldn't think that just what we can see with our present eyes is all that there is to be seen. We should see through the eyes of Shastra, of the Acharyas. That will be seeing by hearing. So we should discuss these points also. Don't think Mayapur is just another place. We could have done a yatra to Calcutta. Of course, Calcutta is also the birthplace. Of course, it's difficult to find a place in India which doesn't have some kind of spiritual touch. Some rishi or saint or some river, maybe Tatanaga Jamshedpur. That's blessed by the Tata Vangsha. So maybe there are some places which are not so spiritual. But yeah, what is the meaning? What makes, or what is it of Mayapur? This is the Dham, this is the land where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even now, and in which it is a doorway to the spiritual world, because it is the spiritual world. If we have the eyes to see it. If we see with material eyes, then we'll see it as the material world. A place to earn money, live comfortably. But Mayapur is meant for living in the service of Krishna. As Srila Prabhupada said, living in Vrindavan means living in the lap of Krishna. So those who are living in Mayapur, who've come here to live in Mayapur, they should also consider that it's very nice to live in Mayapur, no doubt. But the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that should not be forgotten. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself left this land to bring Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to be preached in every town and village of the world. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah, we'll finish there for now. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Sri Mayapur Dham. All glories to all the acharyas who have revealed the Dham, especially today we've been discussing about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who he's the father of the modern Krishna consciousness movement. He is, anyway, all right, we finished for today. Otherwise, we won't finish. In this material world, we have to act within the constraints of the time factor also. Otherwise, our activities become disordered.